Okay, continuing with rigidity. This is one of the conventions of Enlightenment literature. Writing during this time was pretty much produced by a very small group of people that were the cultural elite. And what those authors were doing is that they were writing to their peers. So what this basically means is that you have a small group of people who are writing for each other. And because of that, we end up with some conventions or that are better thought about as being rules to follow. For example, the heroic couplet is one of those conventions. And we'll take a look at some examples of the use of the heroic couplet very soon with our course readings, as well as satire. And then this is a French term, belles lettres, which is beautiful letters. So what this refers to, it refers to this type of writing, right, that's by the cultural elite. We're basically writing for each other just to entertain each other. So a lot of people today ask the question, why do we have these rigid conventions? Why do we have these rules for the period literature? Well, basically, it's a type of control. Yeah, if you think about it like that. You had to follow the rules in order to have something published. It's a way of controlling. And a lot of literary historians view these following the rules, these rigid conventions in writing, is because people during the Enlightenment realized all the changes that were going around them with these advancements in science and technology and wanted some type of control. Yeah, so that's how this all came about. Continuing with rigidity, we get the idea of the great chain of being. Please note that the great chain of being is not a new idea, but it comes from Plato and Aristotle. Neoclassicism, right? Building upon the classics, ancient Greece, ancient Rome. And what the great chain of being is all about, it's the idea of the world, everything in the world, being divinely ordained, and it's based upon order. So if you look here at the chart, this is a very simplistic view of the great chain of being. Of course, at the top of the great chain of being, there's God, right? Then, moving down, we have angels, and then demons, and then we enter into man, which is immortal. So everything above man, of course, is immortal. And then below man, right, we have animals, and then plants, and then minerals. And it was called the great chain of being because this view is better thought of as having a chain, right, which consists of lots and lots of different links, right? So then each division of the chain had lots of links. So mankind, right, has, oh, that's a terrible chain I'm trying to draw with my mouth. Sorry, everybody. Oh, right, so mankind is a chain that's made with lots of different links. So what this refers to is the division of society. In other words, social order, right? There's the upper class, right? And then, of course, there's all those different classes till we get down to the very bottom, right? And the great chain of being, important to remember, is believed to be divinely ordained. In other words, that this is how God created the world. And again, during this time, social order, because of the social order, social mobility really doesn't happen that much. So in other words, whatever chain that you have, I mean, you're born into, if your father was a blacksmith, then you would become a blacksmith. There's no such thing as moving up in the great chain of being. Now, tolerance. We get deism. Deism bubbled out and developed during the Enlightenment. What deism is, it's a religious belief, and these are the characteristics of deism, that there is a higher power. Now, whatever you want to call the higher power is fine. You can say God or creator or divine planner or divine architect, whatever, right? There's a higher power, and what this higher power did, this higher power created the world and then went off because higher powers got better things to do. With deism, the higher power does not supervise the daily operations of our lives. Now, do not confuse deism with Christianity. These are different religious belief systems. If you were a deist, you believed all this, right? And then God, after created the world, went off because God's got better things to do. And by learning about science, right, we learn about the world. And when we learn about the world, we learn about God and God's creation. During this time, there's nothing bad about science. Unlike today in the 21st century, a lot of religious people frown upon learning about science, which is puzzling, but that's just how it happened. So now, this is something that's another point here, this bottom one, that's also opposite of Christianity. Deists believed that man was born naturally good. In Christianity, there's the teaching of original sin, that when a person is born, that person is born with the sin of disobedience inherited from Adam and Eve, and because of that, you have to seek redemption through Jesus, right, to have salvation. So in other words, Christians believe that a person is born damned and going to hell unless you seek salvation and redemption through Jesus. Deism is the opposite. We're born naturally good. And what you do on earth determines whether or not you go to heaven or hell. Now, if you think, this is what I believe. If you say, yeah, I agree with that. And if you claim to be a Christian, no, you are going against the teachings of Christianity, and you're actually a heretic. Yes. Now, please be aware that Christianity was still, around during the Enlightenment, but deism was one of the things that came about during the Enlightenment, and it was very influential. And in America, some of the prominent deists were Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. Yes, the founding fathers of America were not Christians. And one thing that always makes me laugh aloud is when I hear politicians say that America was founded upon Christian principles and we need to get back to those Christian principles. Whenever I hear people talk about that, I have to laugh out loud because they don't know what they're talking about. The founding fathers of America were deists. Wow. So we got to keep on marching through, and we'll continue with the next lecture.